Hello. Hello, hello. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Some people are in. This is good. Okay. Let's just give it a second or two. Everyone can hear me. This is going well. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another GuruShots webinar. As you know, my name is Tom Bourdon, and I'm going to be your host for this webinar. Now, today we're going to be looking at buying and selling used camera gear. Now, sure, we'd all like to buy our camera gear new, but that can be super expensive. Even an entry-level DSLR can be a few $100s now. And this can be obviously quite off-putting, particularly if you're new to photography and you're just getting into the photographic world. So buying secondhand, it's the next best thing. And actually, in some ways, buying secondhand has other benefits as well. But before I get into that, can you just answer this quick question and let everyone know, where do you normally buy your secondhand camera gear? Okay, buy new online. Okay, great. Secondhand online. Lots of people buying Craigslist. I see someone said in the chat. Okay, online. Yeah, lots of online. Changing a little bit. Okay, that's great. Okay, so we're going to start having a look at a few tips for selling your gear. Okay. Now, I actually have someone joining us in a moment who's a real expert in this field. In fact, he's probably one of the leading names in the secondhand camera business. But before I introduce him, let's have a look at a few of my tips. Okay, now what I imagine most of you do, at least if you're anything like me, is you put your gear up on eBay and you cross your fingers hoping to get a decent price. Okay, sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. It's a bit of a gamble, really. So my first tip is to check your local camera store. You might be surprised to know that your local brick and mortar camera store may actually be able to give you just as much as you are hoping to get on eBay. And by selling to your local camera store, you not only remove that uncertainty, but you also help the local photographic community. Now, so many small camera stores have disappeared over the last few years, and we really should be doing our bit to support them. It's certainly something I wish I'd done more in the past. So just pop in and ask. It's that simple. And at the end of the day, if you don't like the price they offer you, you can walk away. Now, the modern equivalent of that would be to submit an online quote. Okay. Now, there's several websites that offer this service, and the quality does vary. The simplest version just gives you a guide price based on your model and its age. But the better sites, they'll actually ask you specific questions about your gear, and they'll also get you to send photos. Now, what they'll do is, with that information, a real person will evaluate your gear based on its age, description, and the condition they can see in the photos. That's quite an accurate, should be an accurate price. My favorite site for this is a site called Used Photo Pro. Let me just put the link in the chat. Used Photo Pro, there you go. I've used this service before, and I received my quote, I think within 24 hours, certainly within 48 hours, very quickly. Once you have a quote from them, you can then send your gear to them free of charge, and when they receive it, they'll do a full evaluation. And if everything is as you described and as the photos show, then they'll pay you the money the exact same day. So the same day they receive it, they'll transfer you the money. No messing around, no waiting for anything. They're super good at that. Okay, again, if you don't like the price of the quote, you don't send your gear in and you just move on. But now, you've got an accurate evaluation and you can try and get more money elsewhere. So it's a good free service that they offer as well, worth checking out. Obviously, you need to be careful when buy or sell anything online. You don't always know who you're dealing with. I'm sure all of you have heard stories about people who've been ripped off. Now, for this reason, it's worth dealing with a known company, even if it is through eBay or whatever. You can deal with known companies, and you can even check out their online reviews. Online reviews nowadays are a fantastic feature. They can be used for anything, not just buying camera gear, but I use it particularly for hotels and restaurants. Online reviews are great. Okay, so there's a few tips from me. What I'd like to do now is introduce you to an industry expert whose job it has been for the last 30 years to buy and sell camera gear. Okay, his name is Nelson. He's from Used Photo Pro. Nelson, can you hear me?
Hey, Tom. Good to be with you today, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, the other day you were telling me about a game people are playing with eBay. Can you just explain that to everyone?
Sure, Tom. Basically, it's where someone has listed an item online. It's possibly more of a collectible type item than the more current digital. But what they're trying to do is possibly influence the market by listing an item, showing that it is sold at a higher price than what it actually sold for. And then when customers or individuals are looking around online trying to figure out what to sell their item for, a lot of them will go to eBay and they'll say, let me look in the average price listing. And when they look in that average price or sold listings, what they find out is they'll see some real high prices, some real low prices. And what you want to do is more focus on the average price that you're seeing on eBay. The price that you establish obviously will influence how quick your item sells. It'll, possibly deter you from selling locally because you think, oh, if I put it on eBay, I'll get more for it. So there's a lot of factors: age, the number of them available on the market, the condition of it, the shutter count. All of those things factor into what you're going to finally obtain for your used piece. So you just want to make sure that you check with your local store, listen to their offer, listen to the reasonability of the offer. Check, Craigslist. That's a good source to do it. Check your online competitors, the online quote systems that are out there. All of them will give you a good idea of what to expect for it. But then if you decide to list it on eBay, make sure that you just know the price point that you want to sell it at and that it's a fair, accurate price.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know.
Hey, no
now, I understand you're going to do a live evaluation and quote of a DSLR for us right now.
Yes, Tom, I've got with me today a Canon 5D Mark III, and it's probably a camera that you're going to see a lot of on the used market. Basically, it's something that a lot of people are trading in to possibly go mirrorless. They may be going up to 5D. With any camera that we get in, we want to try and quickly assess the type condition, the way it's been used, what type issues the customer may be having with it. So the first thing I normally ask when someone presents me with a camera is to the best of your knowledge, is it functioning correctly? And most of the time, people are going to be honest. They're going to tell me, yeah, it's got this issue, or no, it works great. Now, after I get the camera, whether you call in, submit an online quote at Used Photo Pro, we're going to ask you a few questions similar to what I've mentioned. But then once we get the item, we're going to go through a few basic steps initially just to get a good idea of the overall condition of the camera. Obviously, we're looking at external condition. And this one that I have here, overall, it's been well taken care of. You'll see there's no brassing, no wear, that type thing. The next thing I'm going to do is actually put a camera into the, or pardon me, an SD card into the card slot, or a CF. This one takes both. But at that point, once I've put that card in there, I then turn the camera on. And initially, we're going to look through it, make sure that the autofocus system is working with the lens, make sure that the displays for the metering. We're going to check the menu on the back of it to make sure that the menu is popping up. There's no LCD bleeds. We're also going to check for any damage externally, such as to the hot shoe, any brassing, dings, dents, cracks. And then after I do that, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable that the body is working correctly. I'm actually going to take the lens off the body. And what I want to do here is look through the glass of the lens and make sure that there's no dust, no fungus, no spots. And with any autofocus zoom lens, or really with any zoom lens, as you focus that zoom lens, there's some air that passes through it. So as you zoom it out, you zoom it in, there's air that's possibly inviting dust or particles into the lens. So we're checking to see if any of that dust or anything like that has got into the lens. You may have fungus or haze in the lens, and a lot of times people will buy a lens and use it and then put it in the closet in a camera bag. And that's kind of the worst thing you can do for a lens, is because there's no air current flowing around it. So all of my personal cameras, I actually leave them out on a shelf. I'd rather dust them than not have airflow around them. But other things you want to check on that is obviously any scratches, with a filter mount correctly. And then when you zoom the lens in and out, that heliocord there, you want that focus action to be real smooth. And make sure that the autofocus switch turns on and off. You want to check the back of the lens as far as a serial number. With Canon, you're going to see a date range when it was produced along with the serial number. And then on the body, on the back of the body, on the bottom normally, you're going to find the serial number. And that serial number will let you know that everything is legit. As far as other things you may want to consider, obviously, the type of photography that's been done with it. So just make sure that you ask a few questions about it, that type thing. Now, if you were selling this to us, we have a database that we put it into. It's a very unique database. We create a SKU for every item. And what we do then is, after we look it over, we actually type it into our database that we've got a Canon 5D Mark III. And with that Canon 5D Mark III in this condition, we'd say it's in excellent condition, and that's kind of like 90 to 98% of the original factory condition when it was new. At that point, the system will tell us this body right now, we're offering $900 for a 5D Mark III, excellent condition on the used market. Now, the retail market is probably somewhere around $1,400 on it. So you'll see there's a difference there, but that will give you an idea of what we would pay for the body. Now, the lens, it's a 24-105 f4. There's 3 versions of this now on the market. This is the original IS version. This one we would be able to offer you about $300 for, and their retail market on that's about $450 to $475.
Nelson, that's a good idea of what to look for, and it leads us nicely on to buying camera gear, which I'm going to look at now. So don't disappear, Nelson. Stick with us. Hopefully, we're going to have some questions in the chat in a minute. Okay. Okay. So buying used camera gear. Now, my first tip would be, again, check your local dealer. I already mentioned before that dealing with a local camera store will help the photographic community, but there are other benefits too, particularly when buying from a local dealer. The first one being that any decent camera store will have checked the camera, updated to the latest firmware, and also give you a warranty, which can be very reassuring. But surely the biggest advantage from buying from a local camera store is you can get your hands on the gear. Okay, you can hold it in your hand. Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel balanced? Can you live with any damage that it may have? Now, sure, you'll probably pay a premium for this, but with a good warranty, it's probably worth it. Okay, tip number 2 is to check the shutter counts on camera bodies. Generally, shutters are expensive to replace and can often be the death of a camera. Like any mechanical device, they do wear out over time. And I've had one experience of this, and it's not particularly nice. You can be out shooting, and then all of a sudden, you hear a crunch, and the shutter no longer moves. Essentially, at that moment, the camera is dead, and it needs to be sent off for repairs. Cameras keep a count of how many shutter actuations there have been. You can find some online tools that will help you and tell you how many actuations you have. I would recommend that any camera over probably 100,000 actuations be avoided. If a camera you're looking at has taken over 100,000 shots, be very careful, because that's when the shutter starts to wear out. Although I have heard of DSLRs that can shoot over shot over 500,000-600,000. So it depends. Comes down to luck. Let's just check back with Nelson to see what his opinion on that. Nelson, you.
Yes,
Nelson,
Tom,
what's your opinion on that?
I do agree that the 100,000 mark on the shutter count is one where you need to start slowing down a little bit, making sure that you understand the condition of the camera. Sometimes you will see cameras that can go much further than that, but most of your cameras that 100,000 is the right shutter count to start being concerned about is the 5D Mark IV, something like a Nikon D850, D810s, that type thing. That's about where I become concerned now. If you've got a Nikon D5 or a Canon 1DX or 1DX Mark II, those at 150,000, that's when I become concerned, because those are built to withstand a lot more shutter actuations. And then the only time I would differ for that 100,000 clicks on a shutter is on the advanced amateur cameras, such as a Nikon D3200, the Canon Rebel systems. Those obviously can get very much over 100,000, 150,000, but about 75,000 is where I become concerned as well.
Okay, great. And do you have any other tips that could be helpful for our audience?
When you're buying something, obviously online or at your local retail store, obviously they're going to have a return privilege that when you're buying off Craigslist or off eBay, if you're buying from an individual, those services are not going to be offered to you as far as a warranty on it. But that warranty, you want to make sure you clearly understand what the warranty is, how long you have to test the piece out. And then once you get the item, you want to make sure that you test it. A lot of people will buy something, get busy, not test it, and then the warranty or return privilege is up. Are you seeing images of the exact item that you're buying? At Used Photo Pro, we actually photograph every single item, so it gives you a good idea of the wear to the piece. We try and describe any issues we may find with it. We do pull the shutter count like you've talked about whenever possible, but you just want to slow down and actually take the camera out, use it, take the lens out, the meter out, whatever you bought, and make sure that you use that as soon as you get it, versus not using it and then getting past the warranty period on that piece if you've got that option.
Okay, great. Now, before I open up questions to the audience, Nelson has very kindly given us 10% off everything at Used Photo Pro. They have a huge stock. Nelson, do you actually know how many items you have in stock?
Well, it varies. Every single day we add between 200 and 400 new individual items. So right now we probably have inventory right around 2.5 million available for sale. Every week we're out buying more inventory to keep the inventory as fresh as we can for you.
Okay, great. So yeah, there's 10% discount off everything in their online store. Just use the coupon code GuruWebinar. Click on have a look and check that out. I've been having a look, and there's a nice flash I've got my eye on. So I might be in contact with you soon, Nelson, about. Anyone in the audience have any specific questions for Nelson? I've got a question for you, Nelson. Nelson, this flash I'm looking at, what should I be looking for? What should I be concerned about when buying a second-hand flash?
Well, Tom, obviously you're knowledgeable about the type photography you're doing, the type camera that you're using. But the basic things you want to check for is you want to make sure that that flash model will work perfectly with the camera that you're currently using. You want to, when you get the unit, you want to open up the battery compartment, put fresh batteries in it. Prior to putting the batteries in it, you want to look for anything to do with corrosion. Corrosion is a white, crusty substance or a green or greenish blue, and that is a buildup from where the battery has exploded in there, and it'll cause connection issues as far as the battery being able to turn the flash on. So just make sure that once you get it, you test it out. But the corrosion is probably the biggest issue. The second issue that we see is the flash shoe is cracked or damaged and it won't properly mount on your camera.
Okay, great. Also, Mark in the audience, what would you suggest for a first-time camera? I guess someone perhaps who's only been using a mobile phone. What camera would you recommend?
Well, you've got a lot of different cameras to choose from. Obviously, the first question that I would ask the person is are they looking lightweight? Are they looking more professional? Depends on the type shooting that they're going to be doing. But right now, probably the biggest camera that I'm hearing a lot about is the Sony A7R series. They make several out there. The A7R2 is a camera that I just got personally. And the great thing about that is I'm a professional photographer as far as being trained, but I quit shooting many years ago just because I didn't want to carry around the big digital SR when I travel, buying used equipment. But now I'm carrying the camera again, and the 7R Mark II Sony is just a wonderful lightweight camera. It gives you a lot of versatility. It's a full frame sensor. The price point is a little bit high for people that may be looking at it new, but if you look at it on the used market, you can actually find those around $1,500 on the used market. If you're looking to spend less than that, then definitely look at some of your lower lines, your Rebels. Olympus actually makes a very good lightweight mirrorless camera that's not quite at the price point, but it's also not at the durability point that a Sony is. Panasonic, if you're doing a lot of video, Panasonic's making a great series of mirrorless cameras as well. So hopefully that helps with a little bit of the question there.
Okay, great, thanks. I've got a couple more questions here. Let me check. Roy, is there a market for used bronze location kits?
We do sell used Broncolor location or used Broncolor lighting, and the difficult thing about that is it's a very hardy, well-built unit. The knowledge behind using those lights, there's not a lot of people that understand how to fully use and take advantage of the way Broncolor has been built. But as far as us being able to buy it, sell it, we definitely can here in the U.S. And would be happy to give the individual a quote on that if he wants to email in.
Okay, fantastic. Deborah asked, what lens is best for landscape photos? That's quite a big question to answer. I would suggest something wide myself, perhaps with a short zoom for starting off. Or
yeah,
any thoughts on that?
I would agree with you on that. A lot of people love that 2.8 glass. And so they go into a camera store and they think, oh, that's what I got to have. Well, most of the time with landscape, the f4 aperture is plenty wide enough. and you're going to be shooting down at a smaller aperture, 16, 22, something like that, trying to capture as much clarity and depth in that picture. So sometimes people get locked in too much. Everybody's got the f2.8 and they focus too much on that. But I think a 16-35, Canon makes a 17-40. You obviously can go with prime, but Tom, I'm like you. I like the zoom feature of like a good 16-35, something like that.
Okay, great. I'm not sure if I missed any questions there. If I did, just send me an email and I'll do my best to get back to you. Yes, there's that 10% discount. Oh, someone asked how long it's valid for. It's valid until, I believe, the 30th of this month. Okay, so you've got a few days. Go and check it out and get your discount. Okay. Okay, so Nelson, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, Tom, thank you for letting me be a part, and hopefully I've helped out in a small way.
No problem. Cheers. Take care.
Take care, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so next webinar is actually on next week on Monday. Okay, so don't forget to join us there. Thank you very much for attending and happy filming. Goodbye.